The grass under my kid's trampoline died in the shape of a man. It was mid-July, Sacramento. The kind of heat that makes the air shimmer like broken glass. I work from home, tech support, and my office window overlooks the backyard. The trampoline sat in the center of our lawn, one of those massive 16-footers with the black safety net. My daughter loved it, 6 years old, out there every afternoon, bouncing until her hair stuck to her forehead. The dead grass appeared over the course of a week. At first, I thought it was just the weight of the frame killing the lawn underneath, but when I crouched down to look, I saw the shape wasn't circular. It was elongated, narrow at one end, wider at the other, almost like someone had been lying there. I told myself it was neighborhood cats, maybe teenagers cutting through at night. The rational explanations came easy. Then the static started. My son grabbed the metal frame one afternoon and yelped, shaking his hand. "It shocked me," he said. "I touched it myself. The charge was incredible, like touching a car door in winter, but sustained, vibrating. I assumed it was the dry heat. We were in the middle of a brutal heat wave, 105 degrees, humidity at 0. Every neighbor had their windows sealed tight, AC units screaming. You could stand in your yard and scream, and nobody would hear you. I called pest control anyway, just to be safe. The guy showed up the next morning, a sun-baked man in his 50s who had seen everything. He walked around the trampoline once, then crouched down with a flashlight, shining it under the black canvas mat. He didn't say anything for a long time. When he stood up, he packed his flashlight without a word, walked back to his truck, and waved off my credit card. "Don't charge me," I asked. He looked at me with something I can only describe as pity. "Call the police," he said, "not an exterminator." I waited until he left. Then I crawled under the trampoline myself. The depression was shallow, but deliberate. Someone had dug it out by hand, carving a precise body-length trench into the hard California dirt. The edges were smooth, compacted. It looked like it had been there for weeks. Lining the space were things that didn't belong: greasy fast food wrappers, a flattened water bottle, and photographs. Printed pictures of my family taken from angles I didn't recognize. My daughter on the swings, my wife gardening, me standing at my office window. At the far end of the trench was a cut section of garden hose, the edges sawed clean. It was angled upward, poking through a small hole in the trampoline's canvas, hidden in the stitching. A breathing tube. I backed out so fast, I scraped my shoulders on the frame. That afternoon, I locked the kids inside and watched the backyard from my office. The sun was directly overhead, brutal and white, turning every shadow into an ink-black void. The trampoline sat in the center of the yard, perfectly still. Then, at 12:47 p.m., the canvas moved. It didn't sag, it pressed upward. I could see the shape of a face, nose, mouth, the curve of a forehead, pushing up against the black mesh from underneath. The fabric stretched tight over the contours, and I watched the mouth open, gasping, drinking air through the tiny gap in the canvas. My daughter had been on that trampoline 2 hours earlier. I called 911. My voice shook so badly, the dispatcher asked if I was having a medical emergency. The police came fast, 4 officers, 2 with shovels. They pulled the trampoline aside and dug up the trench while I stood on the porch with my family locked inside behind me. The hole was empty, but buried at the bottom, pressed into the dirt, was a Polaroid photograph. It was taken from inside the trench. Looking up, through the black mesh of the trampoline, you could see the pale, blurred outline of my daughter's bare feet. The timestamp on the camera was from that morning. We moved 3 weeks later. I don't let my kids play outside anymore, even in the new house. I tell people it's because of the heat. But sometimes, late at night, I think about how long he was under there, How many times my daughter jumped. How many times she landed inches above his face while he lay there in the dark watching her feet through the fabric. And I think about the fact that the police never found him. He's still out there, and he still has our pictures. File 2 surfaced from a deleted forum post. San Francisco. The apartment manager denied everything. I need to know if anyone else has lived in a Lightwell apartment before answering something for me. I moved to San Francisco 6 months ago. Tenderloin. Bottom floor. $1,100 a month. The listing called it cozy and garden adjacent. What it actually meant was basement level, with a 5-by-foot concrete patio surrounded by a 50-foot brick shaft on all 4 sides. A light well, that's the architectural term. It's supposed to let natural light into lower units, but mine didn't get light. It got fog. The walls rose straight up. No windows, no fire escape. Just blank brick, climbing into a tiny square of sky. That was grey, most days. The door to the patio was heavy, industrial, self-locking. Once it shut behind you, you were trapped at the bottom of a shaft. Unless you had your keys. I'm a graphic designer. I work from home. I wear noise-cancelling headphones most of the day to drown out the city. It helped me focus. It also meant I didn't hear things I should have. The first weird thing was the insects. Every morning, I'd find pale, papery shells scattered across the patio, long, segmented things that looked like molted cicada husks. I assumed they were falling from the roof 50 feet above, some weird urban moth species. Then I noticed the grate. It was set into the base of the north wall just above the concrete. Heavy iron, maybe 2 feet square, rusted screws holding it in place. I assumed it was a drainage vent. Old buildings have them everywhere. But one morning, I crouched down to sweep up the husks, and I saw that the screws were loose. Not rusted loose, unscrewed. The threads were clean. The metal plate was resting against the brick, held in place by gravity alone. I should have called the landlord. Instead, I pulled the grate away. The smell hit me first. Damp earth, and something sour, organic, like old fruit left in a cellar. Beyond the opening was a black tunnel, sloping down into the foundation. I couldn't see the bottom. I put the grate back and told myself it was just an old sub-basement. The building was from the 1800s. Plenty of them had sealed storage areas. I locked myself out 2 nights later. It was 2 a.m. I'd stepped onto the patio to breathe some air, and the wind slammed the door shut behind me. No keys. No phone. Just me. In my bare feet, at the bottom of a 50-foot shaft, I pounded on the door. I screamed up at the square of sky, hoping someone would hear me. The fog rolled in thick, muffling everything. That's when I heard the scraping. It came from the grate. Slow, rhythmic, metal on stone. I pressed my back against the locked door and stared at the iron plate. In the dim light from the upstairs hallway bleeding through the frosted door glass, I saw the grate shift. It tilted forward, just an inch. Then I saw the fingers. They were long, too long, and jointed in too many places, like they'd been broken and reset wrong. They slid out from the darkness, pale and searching, feeling along the concrete, toward my feet. I kicked the door behind me so hard I thought my heel would break. I screamed until my voice cracked. The fingers stopped, 6 inches from my ankle. They flexed once, slowly, then retreated back into the vent. The grate settled back into place. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually, I picked up a chunk of broken flower pot and smashed my own window to climb back inside. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my front door. It was from the building manager, handwritten on yellow legal paper. Please stop whispering into the ventilation shafts. The foundation is old and it carries sound. Other tenants have complained. I never whispered into anything. I moved out 2 weeks ago. I didn't give notice. I just left. But I still think about those fingers. how precise they were, how patient. And I think about the note, because I lived alone. So who was I supposedly whispering to? The final file was found in an unpublished journal. The property remains for sale. There's a door buried in my backyard, and something underneath it wants me to let it out. I bought the property 6 months after my wife died. Joshua Tree, California. 15 miles off pavement. 40 acres of empty desert. No neighbors. No cell service. Just wind, sand, and silence. I needed silence. I'm a sculptor. I work with stone. I thought the isolation would help me process everything. I thought I could bury myself in the work and forget. The door wasn't on the property disclosure. I found it while clearing brush, dead creosote and tumbleweeds piled against the west side of the cabin. I was pulling them away when my boot hit something solid. Under the sand, I brushed the dirt aside and found wood. It was an old door, oak, heavy, lying perfectly flat in the ground. The brass hardware was tarnished but intact. There was even a peephole set into the center. The glass clouded with age. I assumed it was construction debris. The previous owner had left a lot behind. Then I felt the vibration. It came up through the soles of my boots, rhythmic, deliberate. 3 beats. Then silence. 3 beats again. Knocking. I stepped back. I told myself it was settling earth. Underground water. Seismic activity. This was California. The desert was full of fault lines, but the knocking followed a pattern. The water delivery driver came the next week. Gruff guy, 60s, skin like leather. He dropped off the jugs and saw me staring at the flat patch of sand where I'd reburied the door. Previous owner tried to pour a slab over that spot, he said, lighting a cigarette. Spent his last few weeks trying to mix enough concrete to cover it. Then he disappeared. Disappeared? I asked. He shrugged. Probably went back to Nevada. But he left in a hurry. Left his truck. His tools. Everything. That night, I heard it again. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I walked outside with a flashlight. The wind had died completely. Dead air. No sound except my own breathing. I stood over the buried door and felt the vibration. Through the sand. I should have left it alone. Instead, I dug. It took an hour to uncover it completely. The door was set into a wooden frame, perfectly preserved, like it had been buried yesterday. The brass peephole gleamed in my flashlight beam. I crouched down and wiped the glass clean. I don't know why I looked through it. The eye stared back at me. From 6 inches below, it was human. Bloodshot, wide, frantic. The iris was pale grey, almost white. Behind it, I could see the flicker of yellow light, candles maybe, or something worse. The knocking started again. Faster now, desperate. I staggered back and the wind returned all at once, a wall of it carrying red sand that stung my face and hands. Within seconds, I couldn't see the cabin. I ran. I locked myself inside and listened to the storm tear across the desert. The sand hissed against the windows. The walls creaked. Then I heard it. The long, low creak of old hinges. The door was opening. I pressed my face against the window, but I couldn't see anything through the blowing sand. Just shapes, movement. Then, slowly, I heard footsteps on the roof. Heavy, dragging, moving from one end of the cabin to the other, right above my head. They stopped, directly over the kitchen. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The footsteps started again. Slower now, deliberate, tracing a circle around the edge of the roof. They're still up there. I can hear them every night, pacing, waiting. I tried to leave this morning. My truck won't start. The battery is full. The engine just won't turn over. The water driver isn't due back. for 2 more weeks. And last night, I found a new photograph on my kitchen table. It's a Polaroid, faded and yellow, showing the inside of my cabin. I'm asleep in my bed, covers pulled up to my chin. The timestamp says it was taken 4 hours ago. I don't own a camera. That closes the archive for tonight. If you survive this file, the next one's already waiting. Click the tape on your screen right now.